Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Between Two Beards. I'm here with my good buddy, Justice, aka Touchpadwarrior.
Howdy.
This week, we're going to be getting into another class with some alpha changes, moving into Shadowlands. The class of focus is going to be the Paladins. This is a class that both of us play with some capacity. Mine is more of a secondary tune than it is an alt. Justice, it's one of his many alts that he uses to farm mounts on any given week. I think you have a little bit more experience on Paladins in the past, so you can give us a little bit of an insight as to what changes are maybe taking us a step back in history, and which ones are kind of taking us a little bit forward. The first major one that we're looking at, obviously, is is Holy Power. Holy Power is coming back to all three specs of Paladin. Love it or hate it, it looks like that's what's happening. Obviously, with it being the alpha, changes are always possible, but
So, I've been playing Paladin for a long time. It has never been my main character. It's always been like a really fun alt to play, because I like the idea of being a righteous warrior. And before it was like, okay, put up a seal, judgment, and then like, okay, we realize that system's terrible, let's do something else. And as it evolved over time, I forgot if it was in Cataclysm or if it was maybe in MOP that they added a Holy Power system. I'm not a huge fan of a combo point generating resource. That's why I stray away from Rogue and Feral Druid, because it does not. I'm sorry, buddy. Like, that's your cup of tea. That's fine. I also like being the reckless guy. You're tactical and like precise hits. I'm like, mash everything. Let's go. I died. That was random luck. I don't know what you're talking about.
Impossible.
Yeah. And so I stray away from the combo point generating systems. For Paladin, it feels a lot less precise, and it's kind of like, here's something neat, cool, use it. Like, it's not like too much of a pain, like you missed this combo, you didn't do this right, correct combination to generate as many as possible to get this going,
right, for
being an average player for it,
right.
So it didn't feel too punishing.
And it's I just recently started getting back into playing Retribution, and it definitely feels like how Ret is built right now, it feels like it is a class design for the new player. Because you can essentially tell them, listen, you have Holy Power, you have mana. Don't really worry about mana that much. It's not something that's going to affect you a lot, but it's there as an additional pool of energy. What you need to worry about is one spell and one spell alone, Templar's Verdict. If you build up enough Holy Power to use Templar's Verdict, and then you do it again. That's what you do as a Retribution Paladin. Got more enemies around you? Well, then you're going to use Divine Storm. And that's it. That's what Retribution Paladin is. Now, with the expansion of this Holy Power into classes that do use mana, or do have other things that they need to focus on, I'm very interested to see how the dynamics of those classes are going to be changed. And obviously with the Glimmer build that we've been running with Holy Paladins for the past expansion, it definitely is going to add a strange dynamic to that field, because that's going to be carried along with us.
Right. When I did play with Holy Power quite a bit, like for Prot, it felt really off, but it wasn't too punishing because you have enough cooldowns to be able to make up for when you're generating Holy Power to spend. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't anything ever too like punishing. It just felt kind of off or misplaced. And then for Holy, it felt nice because you can use that Holy Power if you're like dipping low on mana. You still have some way to get healing out there,
right?
Even if you're going home. So it helps you kind of like manage your mana pool a little bit in more of a fun way. It's like, okay, I actually don't need to spend mana here. I'll use my Word of Glory on this.
Yep.
Cool. Do this. Boom, boom, boom.
So getting into some of the specifics, so you guys know what we're rambling on about. Holy Power is coming to all three specs. The Holy Power generators for all three specs are going to be Crusader Strike and Hammer of Wrath. Hammer of Wrath, as you know, has been a Retribution Paladin specific ability that is during wings and under 30%, 20%, I believe.
20%.
Under 20% health on the enemy. So it's a little bit of like a soft execute that you can use during your wings. So that's going to be coming to all, which is going to allow for off tanks to diversify their execute phase abilities, or Holy Powers to have something that they can use to diversify their wing phases or whatnot. It's going to just give them a little bit new opportunity there, which I think is very cool, because I main a Holy Paladin, and having the opportunity to use something aside from Glimmer or from Holy Shock and from Crusader Strike is a very welcome addition. Your Holy Power spenders for all three specs are going to be Word of Glory and Shield of Righteousness. So That'll allow for, as Justice was just saying, your Ward of Glory is going to be nice for Holy Paladins because it's going to give a little bit more AoE heals. The opportunity to burst out some real kind of target-specific but area-specific abilities to pop people back up on health. Really, really diversifying the way that Holy Pallies go into 5-man content, I think. We're going to see that used a lot in dungeons. And then you've got Shield of Righteousness, which is great for Retribution Paladins, for Holy Paladins. I think we'll be able to see Paladins fill a little bit of a void that they've had in their class, that classes like Feral Druids or Balanced Druids or any other class that has the ability, Demon Hunters, we were talking about it earlier because of their Leech, any other class that has the ability to jump in and take a tank position for a brief period of time, through strong defensives like that. So having Shield of the Righteous available for the DPS and healing specs will be a nice change of gameplay in that field.
Right. To go into Ward of Glory a little bit too for like Prot and Ret, because you did specify more to Holy. It's like for Prot, it does help you. It's like, hey, maybe my healer needs a little help. He's healing somebody else up. It's a little bit of off healing.
Yeah.
And then for Ret, it's like, oh shit, I stood in bad. Whoops.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. And then Shield of Righteousness is a funky one. We haven't ever had that as like a multi-spec spender to do. It's been just Prot. Because what it does is you spend it and you increase the armor you have. Every Paladin's going to have that, even as Ret with having a two-hander.
Right.
So you're probably going to have like a little bit of spectral shield, kind of like something we saw with Warriors, with them getting shield slam, shield block, etc., spell reflect. I don't see how that plays really for Holy Paladin, but it's interesting. It's another offensive ability to use. Like maybe in arena, like if you see a crazy melee comp, take a little reduction of damage. But
yeah,
more so I see a scenario in Ret with like a tank dying, they die, you had an aura up, which we'll get into later, and they pass away, you get armor, you're able to tank the boss for a little bit, you have defensives until they get them back up.
Right.
And so like that's really the only utility I see out of that.
Yeah, it'll definitely, that's exactly it. That's the great word. It adds utility, and it's up for the player to decide how they want to weave that into their regular conduct. So I think we'll see some interesting uses of those. Myself being a big Mythic Pluser, I always look for the opportunities in that kind of realm.
Is that the right word?
Mythic Pluser? Yeah.
Mythic Pluser?
I have a badge somewhere. It's on a jacket.
Do we have a badge somewhere? It's on a jacket. Also somewhere else. I kind of. If you have more merch come out, Scott.
Yeah, Mythic Pluser. M plus ER.
Wow.
New spells that are once again going to be shared by all 3 specs. First of which is going to be Sack, or Blessing of Sacrifice. That's going to be something that's available to all 3, which we until now have only seen with Holy Paladins, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
That allows you to take 30%, or reduce the damage that a player takes by 30% while you suffer 10% of the damage taken. So again, it just diversifies the utility that Paladins are able to bring to the table in both 20 and 10 5-man conduct.
Sacrifice is such a. I remember so many times in Wrath Lich King, because I did a lot of random Wrath Lich King. That was my true last hardcore push of anything. You're just hearing people call out Sack,
yep.
Sack,
me.
You're like, who's Zack? And then some confusion happened. It's going to be really fun in a PvP scenario. Like, Ret's going to have that awesome utility to back them up. They can pop some kind of defensive and sack somebody that's getting focused, drop their sack on them, teabag them a little bit. In Prot, it's going to be really phenomenal because, like, you're already taking damage, dude. If, like, there's some kind of fight or mechanic where, like, somebody has to solo soak something, you can put Sacrifice on them, and they can take that hit. It's going to be really neat, even off tanking, right? So like if you have like the classic 3 debuff switch and your off tank maybe not that geared and he needs a little help, a little pick me up, you toss your sack on him and he says, why do you never take a shower? And then he's alive again. You taunt the boss back. It's a good time. So
aside from Blessing of Sacrifice, we're going to see Hammer of Wrath, as we've already talked about, come back. Word of Glory, Shield of Righteousness, those things. Avenging Wrath. That is going to become a non-talented ability, right? That all of the classes are going to be receiving.
Correct. Everybody has Avenging Wrath. Like, you have those wings.
Right.
Pop your wings, right? Everybody has that. However, there's going to be some interesting play into that with auras.
Right, and so
whenever you would love to.
So that's the next thing. We're getting auras back. Now, until now, we've seen them. Well, for BFA at least, we've seen auras be a talented option. It's going back to how it was in Lich King, when
seems so.
auras, you're doing a little aura dancing throughout combat. So the
Warriors
auras
had stance dancing, and then paladins also had their auras that they could just toggle between on and off.
Yeah, so we're gonna have devotion aura, retribution aura, and concentration aura, and then we'll also have crusader aura. So crusader aura is kind of heart of the crusade, but it's different. It applies a 20% movement speed buff to all of the people around you, and this is not a time-based buff. This is, you pop it and it's up as long as the aura's up. So that'll have a lot of utility in PvP, which is awesome. Same thing with concentration aura. Concentration aura reduces the movement affecting abilities, stuns, interrupts, stuff like that by 100%.
Yep.
So
it's more of like for casters, it's like reduces pushback on the spells.
Yeah.
So you know how like if you're trying to cast a heal, maybe it's kind of weird to say, but a holy priest with casting greater heal, it's a longer cast, right? The pushback on your spells whenever you get hit by something, it will reduce the seconds lost on that
significantly.
And then also things like silences and interrupts. And then another fantastic aura we already went through.
And devotion aura. Sorry, can't forget devotion aura. That's the one that we've maintained.
You're gonna see that one like up the most. Probably.
It's gonna vary between devotion aura and the one that we're gonna talk about next, which is retribution aura. Retribution aura is something that is gonna have a lot of utility in all forms of play, but I think for the hardcore key pushers, you're gonna see retribution aura used the most because it's going to directly affect the output that they see. Retribution aura causes you and your allies to deal damage out to, it's essentially the damage that you take, there is a chance to deal holy damage back to the people that are attacking you.
Like passive thorns.
Yep, exactly. And then on top of that, when you have an ally die within 60 yards, it immediately gives you wings. And I'll let you go into that a little bit because you were the one that was doing the research on wowhead.com.
Wow, yep. Thank you, Wowhead. And also thank you, Blizzard Watch. So it's gonna play a little funky. So how it read is that when you have Retribution Aura up, if somebody dies, then you would get wings. Now there's a rank 1 that you start off, if you go into Shadowlands, it's 8 seconds of wings, and then your rank 2 is at 52. So not a big deal, not a big difference. It goes up to 12 seconds. So it just adds 4 to it. Pretty neat. But the odd thing about it is you're banking on somebody dying so that you can have more throughput.
Right.
It's a funky playstyle. You're betting on your friend to die. So like you kind of like almost want to have somebody sacrifice. So you have a raid team that has 5 paladins in it. Let's say you're doing mythic, for some reason you have 5 fucking paladins. I don't know what's going on in your life, but it might happen a lot in Shadowlands because they bring a lot of utility now. You would almost want to have somebody to sacrifice.
Yep.
Because of how amazing that is. Like, you know what? We haven't spent any battle roses yet. Fuck it. Hey, warrior, taunt the boss. Let's get our paladins a little boost here. Because there's another thing that you can spec into that'll make it so that lasts 50% longer for a total of 18 seconds.
Yeah, it's the your aura mastery. If aura mastery is up, when retribution aura is out, it will increase it to an 18-second avenging wrath, which is just so deliciously gross.
I think 20 seconds.
20 seconds, yeah.
Right. So like, it's such a funky. You have to predict people's deaths.
Well, and it's one of those things that we've looked at. That I've heard people talking about with the changes for paladins. The change in prioritization for how some of these spells are used. Are you going to want to save Aura Mastery for the end of the fight instead of maybe having to use that a little bit earlier? So when people go down, you can anticipate it, pop Aura Mastery, and allow your paladins in the group to get that little buff of Avenging Wrath.
Right.
Who knows? We'll see. We'll see how
it was before. It was a 3-minute cooldown, right?
Correct. Yeah, it still is the Aura Mastery still, as far as I am aware, is a 3-minute cooldown.
Average boss fight would be like 5 minutes, and so you want to at least get 2 in use. So, like, depending on when you want to use those or what the encounter might look like, you probably want to pop one within the first 2 minutes, and then you have one right at the end or right before the end. So that would be the ideal play.
Yeah.
The other thing that one of the orders we didn't elaborate too much on was Devotion Aura, and so that's just a passive 3% damage reduction. Not how it had been in the past and it's adjusted a lot, which is just flat armor, which would be only physical damage. It's just a flat 3% damage reduction.
Which is huge.
Magical or physical.
Especially in a game where we've seen magic reduction abilities just kind of get pruned away a little bit from everybody.
Yeah.
That's massive. Huge. So that'll be a big cooldown. You'll definitely be seeing people coming in. Aura Mastery, I believe, is still just for Holy Paladins. You'll definitely see Holy Paladins be an integral part of each team, especially with that Devo Aura being something that can block out magic damage for everybody. So
when it gets enhanced, I think it's like 10%.
Yes.
Damage reduction. That's pretty fucking amazing. So there used to be like something we used to call in Wrath of Lich King raid walls, because like Aura Mastery was something that you played with,
right?
So you had a lot of paladins, and so like whenever something was about to do like
it's 20% reduction of damage through Devo Aura.
For how long though?
For 20 seconds is Aura Mastery.
20 seconds. That's phenomenal.
No, sorry, 8 seconds. I take that back. It's only 8 seconds.
How dare you? It's no longer phenomenal.
But it's still great for those burst situations. Yeah, when damage, because you got to think about it, there's no raid bosses that I can immediately bring to mind where for longer than 8 seconds they're dealing increased amounts of magical or physical damage to everybody. It's typically they go through like a buff window where that's where you roll your Mending Tides totems or whatever, your Spirit Link, and then after that your darkness goes down, and then after that everything goes back to normal. That's what that cooldown is for.
Yeah, so when I used to raid lead back in Wrath and stuff, would call for raid walls, and that would be like one of them. And so like you would stagger them. The healing team would like construct this algorithm of different defense pop when and where, and like Paladins having that time to shine, be like, yeah, I'll drop Devo Aura Mastery over here, and be like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, we could definitely use that damage reduction like flat. It's phenomenal. It's a really strong ability.
So aside from those for overall, a couple talent changes coming to all the specs. Major change, Divine Purpose is now going to be a proc to make your next spender free and to buff it to do more damage and healing as needed. And Holy Avenger is changing to a burst Holy Power Generator. Your Holy Power Generator is going to be tripled for the next 20 seconds. And that's a generator that normally gives 1 Holy Power and will now give 3. And that was something we had at one point too. Yeah. And now it's going to be for everyone. It's going to be really funky to play with, like being a Ret Paladin being a Holy Paladin, balancing that mana spent on Crusader Strike, which that's currently how it plays. Yes. Is that Crusader Strike is going from no mana cost to 12% of base. Base. So there's the keyword is of base mana. Yeah. And that's concerning for Holy Paladins. Yeah. I know. How intellect worked in the past was like the more intellect you had, the higher mana pool you had. I'm not sure if that's something we're going into see in this next expansion, but seeing 12% of base mana is a little scary. Yes. For sure. But the trade-off is that with your Holy Power spenders that you're not spending with. So there's going to be a trade-off, and there's definitely going to have to be a balancing that Holy Paladins see, especially moving from an expansion where Holy Pallies went from essentially hitting Holy Shock and Crusader Strike, and then Holy Shock and Crusader Strike. That was the rotation. Now they're going to definitely see a little bit of change in that, but I think it's going to be good. I am overall positive. I have positive feeling towards the changes, and we'll see how it changes the way that we weave. The last new talent, Seraphim. It's a cooldown that converts Holy Power into secondary stats, which the balancing of secondary stats is going to be interesting moving into Shadowlands. So I'm curious to see how much of a prioritization that talent ability takes over the other ones on that tier. But we shall see. And then we just had a couple talents switch from level 40 to, I believe, level 35. Cavalier and Unbreakable Spirit are now on level 35 talent row. And that's it for the overall Paladin changes. We forgot to keep in consideration that with Crusader Aura being an aura now that you have, and Aura Mastery being there, it's also going to be able to amplify that. I'm not sure how it currently affects it, and I forgot how it did back in the day because that was something to do with. It might just be increased mount speed, but also it's like kind of weird to play with. Yeah, there has to be something neat there, but we don't know exactly what it might be. That'll be interesting because it'll give Paladins almost like a stampeding roar. So you'll have the opportunity to bring in, hopefully but only for mounted speed. So I'm confused. I don't know. Oh, interesting. No, you're not wrong. Yeah. Huh. That will be interesting to see how we move into it. Moving right along into Holy Paladins. Speaking of Aura Mastery, there's a little bit of change obviously coming with them. Their holy power generators are going to be Beacon of Light, Holy Shock, Light's Beacon, and Beacon of Virtue. Those are their generators. Their spenders are going to be Light of Dawn, which I don't think that's going to change how we interact with that very much. And on top of that, we're going to be given, we are going to get Word of Glory, so that'll give us another AoE heal ability or generalized AoE heal ability. So that'll be nice to kind of weave in there with Light of Dawn. And then minor changes. Aura Mastery is now going to make all 4 of your auras even stronger. You'll get damage reduction from Devo, longer Avenging Wrath from Retribution. This is just going to be kind of, you got to decide when to use it for which one. You know, whether it's a burn phase, like we see on Hive Mind right now, you would want to use Aura Mastery to burn down oh shoot, what are those, the little flying ones called? Scions? Darters. The Darters. So, you know, you'll see different boss phases where you need to burn something or where you need to sustain. And that's really, you know, the same thing that you'll see with Aura Mastery. New talents. Glimmer is turning from an Azerite ability, an Azerite talent, into just a regular talented ability on your level 50.
Shocking.
Level 50, yeah. Holy shocking.
Oh my.
It's going to become a level 50 talent tier. And it's going to replace Divine Purpose. So Divine Purpose wasn't used a whole lot for Holy Paladins, so you're going to be using Glimmer of Light, and then it's going to be competitive with Beacon of Faith. So it'll be interesting to see how stat weights differ between the two of those. Obviously, it's a big change in playstyle when you're not using Glimmer, and whether or not one favors PvP, one favors Mythic Plus, one favors Raid. We'll see as we get more into the alpha. Aside from that, new talents, Saved by the Light. It's when an ally with your Beacon of Light is damaged below 30% health, they absorb the next blank amount of healing. We don't know exactly how much yet. We'll see how viable that is as we move forward, but that'll be another option. And then changes to talents that already exist. Holy Prism is going to move to Tier 2 to take the place of Rule of Law, and then Rule of Law is moving down to Tier 4 to take the place of Aura of Mercy. Aura of Mercy is going away because it just was not used that much. So that'll
how does that change up your talent building then?
Not a whole lot. I think Rule of Law is still going to be the choice for Raid, because you want to extend your mastery heals a little bit farther. Holy Prism, I don't know. Honestly, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know if that's actually going to affect Holy Prism. It wasn't used very much. Saved by the Light's on that same 25 tier row. I think you might see Saved by the Light used a little bit more in like Mythic Plus. When an ally's at Beacon of Light, damage below 30% health, they absorb the next X amount of damage. That might be nice for 5-man content or like a very, very tanky kind of raid boss. But I think you'll probably see Saved by the Light used more than anything else, because that's just heavy raw healing overall.
Gotcha.
So we'll see. I think moving into Shadowlands, Holy Paladins are going to be similar to how they are now, but it all kind of depends on how much power they give that Beacon of Faith, depending on whether we go
or how much faith they have in that.
Whether we run the Glimmer of Light build or whether we run the Beacon of Faith build it's kind of up in the air right now. I'd have to get my hands into it a little bit more to be able to tell. I'm really happy with how diverse of a role Holy Pallies seem to fill running the Glimmer of Light build right now. I know it's something I got into Holy Pallies in this last tier. I know it's something that people have been running for the entire expansion, so maybe a little bit more veteran Holy Pallies want to change it up, would like to roll a different build, but I still think I love that up and in it kind of healing that Holy Paladins do. They're still plate wearers. They still are channeling light into their immediate surroundings, so it makes sense that they're kind of up in the nitty gritty of the combat and just throwing the light around on their friends, dropping some of that.
It also appeals to me because I like to be more like a combat healer.
Yep.
I don't like to just sit there and like, cool, I'm safe. I'm in my safe spot. Make sure you guys are safe. I want to be in the fray.
Yeah.
Like, because I play a warrior, like, so Paladin speaks to me for being a healer, because if you're able to toggle between being able to be like almost like a Shakadin and then also still heal your party, it's entertaining for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paying attention to the damage taken aspect and the damage dealt aspect of things, and then also utility of all the abilities you have, because you're going to have crazy amounts of utility.
Mm-hmm.
Like
well, and you like you know, there's fights where you really feel like your damage, because you know, looking at the DPS meter, there are fights where as a holy paladin I am able to look at that and see, holy crap, I'm dealing quite a decent amount of damage, especially on those single target fights where you can just holy shock the boss and not have to worry about healing your party because it's a down phase or something like that, or like as we see on the Zoth right now. Yep.
Right? If you're pushing Mythic Plus and stuff.
Yeah.
Are you going to want to bring the healer that just has raw output of heals? Or do you want to bring a healer that's also going to be able to contribute to mobs dying really quick?
Well, and that's why we've seen resto druids have such a high utility in these higher keys, because of the amount of damage they can put out as kitty weaving and just continue to have their hots roll. So it's an interesting concept to see whether or not we see the Glimmer meta change because of that fact, because it's the Glimmer meta that allows them to really see and heal the damage that they've been doing this X back.
Gotcha.
Prop paladins, what changes have we seen with them?
Blessed Hammer gets a slight change, not too much. Right now it just reduces the percentage of damage that they deal to you. If I'm not mistaken, I easily could be. What it looks like it's changing to is just the attack power they have is reduced. So it's like it's a change, but like how much that change is, we'll see in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
More importantly, yeah, like the biggest thing is we're gonna have holy power again, and then it's gonna be funky. But keep in mind that these are the name of the abilities for generators for holy power. It's gonna be Avenging Shield, Blessed Hammer, Hammer of Righteous, because you have the choice to spec into Blessed Hammer or not, and Judgment. So all those filler abilities that you're constantly already using as a paladin, it's just gonna now generate another resource tool that you have. And the only spender, aside from Word of Glory, is Shield of Righteousness. That's it. So that's the thing that people are not taking into consideration when they get upset about saying, as a tank spec, you have a combo point system, because it doesn't play out too well in their heads. They're like, I'm gonna need this ability then, and then if I don't predict that that's gonna be what I needed, I'm boned.
Yeah.
It's not the case, because it's only for really two abilities: to heal yourself and to deal a little bit of damage and have increased armor.
Right.
That's it. It's increased armor. It's not gonna help you with your magical or anything like that.
It's just physical attacks.
Exactly.
How easy are they going to be able to keep that armor buff rolling through the expenditure, that since it really is
with how many abilities you have to generate?
Yeah.
Not hard at all. Like most of the time when I played a prop paladin that had holy power again from before, you pretty much were able to keep Shield of Righteousness up the entire time. More often or not though, because not everything is just flat physical damage, you're using it on Word of Glory. And like sometimes not even for yourself. I remember tanking a lot of dungeons and using things called Light of the Protector a lot just to heal allies and then Word of Glory. So while I was taking all the hits, I was healing my raid team. I was healing my party.
Which should see them become a little bit more versatile, and I'd love to see prop allies. I've already run with fantastic prop allies this season in Mythic Plus, but it would be awesome to see this allow them to, you know, on fortified weeks or something like that, be able to pull more, take a little bit more abuse to help keep up those bigger pack pulls, and maybe see the meta change away from the prop warrior a little bit. See some other people be able to fill that tanking role in the MDIs.
Yeah. One of the new abilities we're getting is a passive, and this is a funky one. I've seen an iteration of it before in the past. It's called Shining Light. Your critical hits make your next Word of Glory free, so you can just pop it for free. It would normally be 3 cost. It doesn't increase the amount healed by how many holy power you're spending. It's just a flat 3. Makes it free for critting. This will have a big impact on stat priorities and itemization. It goes into a whole spiel over here of Blizzard Watch, but how it was read through a video that I saw was that after you use Judgment, it reduces the cost of your Word of Glory by 1.
Okay.
So how that plays into things is like you almost want to use Judgment almost every time before you use Word of Glory to reduce how much holy power you're having to generate in the long run, which in turn would add up to a lot of holy power generated for Shield of Righteousness. So it's a toggle, right? What you would have to do is, in that scenario, you could use any of those abilities, like put it down Blessed Hammer and Judgment, and then you can work Glory already. That's funky. That's a really interesting play to have like this fake holy power there.
And I have seen a lot of people kind of be frustrated with the addition of this holy power system back to specifically prot, and it does sound like it maybe is going to make for a lot more complex button management system. It's going to take the foresight required to play that class and take it to a whole new level, because you got to plan for both the defensives that you need to use, which are just buttons that need to get mashed, and the defenses you have to earn through holy power generation and prepare to use that as well.
And they're like almost like pulling them sometimes. Like,
yes.
Oh, about to take a hit, keep my holy power, took the hit, or to glory.
And that never feels good for any class, is having energy to expend but having to sit on it. It's not a very fun play style, because we want to mash buttons. That's what we want to do as players. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see a little bit tweaking and tuning before we actually move live with it, because I do think that it's going to make maybe them a little bit more versatile but less fun to play, and that's never the trade-off that you should be seeing moving into a new expansion.
Yeah, it's kind of fucking funky. Another new talent option that Proc gets is Sanctified Wrath. Avenging Wrath lasts 25% longer and causes Judgment to generate 1 holy power. So that will make it so that your Judgment will now generate 2 when you have Avenging Wrath up.
Which could help you spend more and not have to worry so much about generating new.
Right, and so that's the things that I think people are not taking into consideration is you only have 2 abilities to use these spenders on. It's just kind of like for free there, like waiting for you. And then you also have a lot of systems into prot that make it so you can generate additional or reduce cost of. So it's not going to be as punishing. What it rolls down to, like mathematically almost, is that roughly each of those 3 spenders will cost 2. Like in the long run of like utility used or abilities used and like what procs you're getting and stuff, it's not going to be costing 3 every time, 5 max limit. It's going to cost like 2. And so it's going to be a little interesting how you have to play with rotation and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be as nearly as crippling as other people think it is.
Interesting.
That's how I see it.
We shall see.
A sad thing is that they are removing my favorite prop paladin ability, which is Aegis of Light. It was literally never used.
Channeling an Aegis of Light that protects you and the ally standing within 10 yards behind you. Oh. Because nobody's ever behind the tank.
You put this cone behind you is all you do. You put up a shield and a cone.
It's a cool concept.
It looks really fucking cool.
Yeah,
that's why it was my favorite ability. And I remember like leveling my prop paladin Legion, and I was playing with my buddy. I was tanking. He was my main tank of the guild, and he was healing me, and he's never healed before. And we're running through these dungeons like, Aegis, stand behind me. He was like, oh my god. We took it like so seriously.
Moving into Retribution Paladins. Rep Paladins aren't seeing a whole lot of change, I'm gonna be honest with you, just moving forward. Obviously they're gonna get the auras just like everybody else. We've already touched on that though. Holy Power Generators are gonna be the exact same thing. Hammer, Wrath, Judgment, Blade of Justice. Your Crusader Strike is still gonna generate Holy Power. New ability, it's not really a new ability. Wake of Ashes is still gonna be there. However, it's not going to be a talented option. It's going to just be a new ability that you have inherently, and it's only going to generate 3 holy power instead of 5. So I know Rep Pallies have had this very, very specific system of how they use, build, and then spend holy power, and I'm curious to see how this change in Wake of Ashes affects that, because I know that it started out with using like a Blade of Justice and then a Judgment, and using your first 3 spender and the Wake of Ashing and going forward from there. Well, now Wake of Ashes is not going to cap out your holy bar, so we'll see how they kind of weave that in there.
I feel like as a newbie paladin, I'm totally okay with this. The reason why is because I was overcapped for being a noob. So that's what it was.
It didn't take long though to understand the rotation for it, and I will say, just being a relatively new Retribution Paladin, not as new as you, but relatively new. There are 2 abilities right now in the talent tree that are important for them for single target combat. It's Inquisition and Execution Sentence. Inquisition is essentially a flat haste and damage buff, I believe, and it caps its 1 holy power up to 3 is where it caps. So you'd want to you'd want to get 3 and pop that. So there's 3 holy power gone right from the pull, and then so that's your Blade of Justice, Judgment gone, and then you would want to pop Wings. And then Wake of Ashes, and then again, you need 3 holy power to use Execution Sentence. So you'd use 3 holy power out of the 5 that you just got from using Wake of Ashes, and then you pop a Crusader Strike or a Judgment or your Hammer of Wrath to give yourself 3 and Templar's Verdict. So the reason that you had that was because it made for a very quick opening transaction, opening salvo, and then you could just manage the cooldowns as the fight continued. Now with it,
Paladins like just climb the meter at at the start, and then as wings fell off, so did
their damage. But luckily with some of the different things that we've seen in BFA, they were able to climb back up. They were able to maintain a little bit, but now we'll see. It's interesting. Moving on from there, new talents that are coming off of the Azerite, but onto the talent bar is Imperium Power. So Imperium Power, like Glimmer for Holy Pallies, is making the leap from the Azerite trait over into the talent bar, which is going to allow for your Crusader Strikes to have a chance to proc Divine Storm at no cost to Holy Power and immediate, which it always typically is. And then it also is going to deal more damage as well. Another new talent coming in is Healing Hands. Your Lay on Hands is on allies that are less than 30% health, going to reduce the cooldown of Lay on Hands by 50%. I think you'll see a lot of use of that in Mythic Plus content. You'll also probably see it in, I'd say PvP, but you can only really use it in non-rated content. So probably not a whole lot of use in PvP on that.
We'll see if something changes in that.
You think so?
You never know, buddy.
It'd be interesting.
I've seen some fucking thing. For all we know, we'll get blood back in arena. And
they already have it if you've got a shaman in the group.
Enhance only.
Yeah, enhance only, right?
Yeah, and it's personal.
And then another last talent change is Sanctified Wrath. Another Azerite talent graduates to a talent. Avenging Wrath is going to last 25% longer. During this time, each holy power that you spend causes you to explode with Holy Light. So it's going to take your, and this is honestly probably going to see a lot of utility in Mythic Plus because a lot of focus in Mythic Plus, exactly, that passive AoE, and that's the driving power. So you already see a lot of Paladins using Zeal whenever they go into Mythic Plus, just because it allows for them to focus and deal a little bit more AoE damage, which in reality, even on Tyrannical Weeks, is still the majority of the damage that needs to go out is going to be AoE. So if you can prioritize your mob pulls and then allow you to kind of get away with a little bit more on the bosses, you're still going to wind up coming in under time, which is exactly what you're looking for. A couple removed abilities for Ret. Your blessings. Blessing of the Kings, Blessing of the Wisdoms. Don't have to worry about anybody coming after you for those blessings. No begging of the healers of, hey, give me Blessing of Wisdom.
It's been on and off throughout the expansions. Like, people really liked having it, and then it was like, this is a chore, let's just make it baseline.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, you know what? I miss being able to buff my friend. It's neat. I'll give it back to you. And like, how at this point, how I feel about it is like, cool, I'll see it return in the next expansion. Like, that's how I feel.
If it's not this expansion, hang around, come back for the next one.
I went like 2 expansions when Rend was gone, and then Rend reappeared. And I'm like,
yeah,
is this gonna be how things go?
And then it was a priority managing that.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, now it's crap again. Don't spec for it.
All of us
don't know what to do.
Our warriors a bleed class again. And then the last talent is that's getting removed actually is Divine Judgment. So no longer each enemy hit consumes holy power, increasing damage of judgment. No clear replacement for that at this time, but that is going to be going away as of now, moving into the Shadowlands. So that kind of wraps up the changes right now that we're seeing. Obviously, there's definitely a lot more going on with Paladins moving into Shadowlands and some of the other classes. I think it's interesting because there's been the addition of holy power to all of the specs is a little bit of a point of contention for people. But it definitely is, as you're seeing, going to diversify the playstyle and pretty much any content you're in. So we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording. I think you'll see Paladins be able to fill a little bit more of a niche, and you also might see some pally stacking just because of how Devo and Retribution Aura and Aura Mastery and all that stuff operates. I think we may be seeing some pally stacking moving forward. But I, as always, am very interested in how the changes here are going to affect the MDIs and Mythic Plus overall. What the optimized group is going to look like with all of these different group buffs coming back.
You still have Bop, right? You still have your bubble.
You still have bubble.
Sacrifice for everybody.
Lay on hands. Sack.
Auras.
Yep.
Like there's going to be a lot of everybody's going to have Word of Glory.
Yeah.
Like, just that off heal to people to do. Like it's going to be very, very interesting.
So with that being said, I think that Paladins are definitely in for a little bit of an interesting journey moving into Shadowlands, and I'm excited to see how people take and really enhance what they're given, because just like everybody else, we're seeing that baseline expansion of abilities just cross over all of them. But I definitely am still seeing in the Paladin some unique spec-specific abilities that is really going to give some identity to each of them, and that I like to see. So
yeah.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us again this week. Stay tuned next week for another class in Shadowlands.
Speaking of which, we already talked about the 2 classes we both love. So shouldn't it be up to our audience what class they would like to see next?
You know what? I like that. Comment below for what class you'd like to see next week. Remember, we do Between Two Beards every Monday. We have a new episode out. So comment below. Let us know. We'll record it next Sunday, and we'll get it up to you on Monday. Until next time, we have been Two Beards, and you've been between us. Thanks, guys, so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next week.